The official story is that the world is in a phase of negotiation. You look at the headlines this week, and what do you see?
You see peace talks. You see handshakes.
Peace talks in Abu Dhabi, a democratic election in East Asia, a managed transition of power in Venezuela.
Right.
But if you just scan the front page, it looks like politics. It looks like business as usual.
But if you actually look at the data, not the headlines, the data, the energy grid loads, the drain on air defense batteries, the assassination attempts.
The math says something very, very different.
The math says total war. We have entered a phase where peace and war are no longer distinguishable concepts. The world you think you live in, it's already gone.
This is Neural Pulse. Date, February 8, 2026. Let's analyze.
Let's start with the kinetic evidence. Because the illusion of safety was, well, it was shattered this weekend, specifically between February 6th and 7th.
The data points coming out of the Russia-Ukraine theater are conclusive. We are looking at a massive escalation. Now, for the listener who might have missed this, the Russian Federation launched a saturation attack.
And saturation is the key word there. It implies a volume designed to just completely exceed the defense's capacity to respond.
Right. The metrics are staggering. In a single night, 408 drones were launched. And we need to be specific here. These weren't just the standard Shahed models.
No, we saw Gerbera and Itamas variants in the mix.
And simultaneously, 39 missiles. This included 21 KH-101 cruise missiles and, critically, 2 Zircon hypersonic missiles.
And before we even get to the targets, you have to look at that mix. This is the high-low mix strategy in its purest form. It is a brutal efficiency calculation.
Explain that.
You use the cheap, mass-produced drones, that 400-plus swarm of Gerberas, which are, essentially flying lawnmowers made of plastic and plywood.
To exhaust the expensive Western air defense systems, the Patriot, the Iris-T.
Exactly. You're forcing the defender to trade a $2 million interceptor missile for a $20,000 drone. It's an economic attrition war played out in the sky.
You drain their magazines. You overwhelm the radar.
And then, once that shield is weakened, once they're in a reload cycle, that's when you send in the Zircons. You send in the hypersonics that travel at Mach 9 to kill the really critical infrastructure.
And they didn't target tank battalions or trench lines this time. They targeted the nervous system of the state.
Correct. They went for the spinal cord.
The targets were the 750 kV and 330 kV high-voltage substations, specifically the thermal power plants at Bursztyn and De Broodveer. Now, for those not familiar with grid architecture, hitting a 750 kV substation isn't like knocking down a local power pole.
No, these are the massive arterial nodes. If you take those out, you aren't just causing a blackout, you are destructuring the entire grid. You're making it physically impossible to move electricity. It's a localized collapse of modernity.
The operational consequence was immediate. In Lviv, 600,000 people lost power instantly. The ambient temperature was minus 20 degrees Celsius.
And in Bursztyn, the heating and water supply just ceased. When the power goes, the pumps stop. When the pumps stop, the pipes freeze.
And it is worth noting the timing. This bombardment happened immediately after the conclusion of the talks in Abu Dhabi.
Yes. There was a prisoner swap. 313 POWs went home. That's the photo op. That's what they want you to see. But the missile strike is the reality. It proves that diplomacy is now just a cover for kinetic shaping operations.
It's what you call the cold piece.
Precisely. The international dialogue isn't a safety net, it's a smokescreen. They shake hands in the daylight so they can shoot better in the dark.
Speaking of shooting in the dark, the violence is not contained to the front lines. It has moved to the decision-making centers. On February 6, in Moscow, General Vladimir Alexeyev of the GRU was shot in his own home.
This is a significant escalation. I mean, this isn't a battlefield casualty. This is a liquidation.
No, and Alexeyev is not a low-level functionary. He is the first deputy head of the GRU Russian military intelligence. To give the listener some context, this was the architect of the 2016 U.S. election interference.
This was the man who negotiated with Prigozhin during the Wagner mutiny. He's a man who lives in the shadows.
He's a man who owns the shadows, or he was supposed to. And yet, a delivery man entered his apartment and opened fire.
Think about the implications of that. If the man who masterminded the subversion of American democracy isn't safe in his own apartment in Moscow, then the concept of rearguard security is dead. The security apparatus is eating itself.
The FSB claims to have a suspect in Dubai, but that feels almost irrelevant to the signal being sent.
The signal is clear. The front line is now everywhere. It's in a power plant in Lviv, and it's on a doorstep in Moscow. There is no safe zone.
Let's move theaters. The geopolitical shift. We're seeing aggressive posturing in East Asia, February 8 today. The results of the Japanese House of Representatives election are in.
And it was a decisive consolidation of power.
The Liberal Democratic Party, under Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, has secured a single-party majority. This is a validation of her entire platform.
Takaichi is often called the Iron Lady of Japan for a reason. Her victory signals the end, really, the definitive end of the era of pacifism in the Pacific. But what's fascinating to me isn't the victory itself, but the battlefield it was fought on.
You're referring to the Mirror Face campaign.
Exactly.
Japan's National Police Agency officially attributed a series of cyber intrusions to Mirror Face, a hacking group they've linked to the Chinese government. We're talking over 200 attacks.
But it wasn't just data theft, was it? This is where it gets into gray zone warfare.
Right. During the election, they deployed generative AI disinformation. They were trying to manipulate public perception, erode trust.
They weren't just trying to steal secrets, they were trying to hack the voter's mind.
And Japan's reaction is telling. They aren't just building firewalls anymore. They are moving to active cyber defense.
This is a huge shift in their legal and military doctrine. Active cyber defense means the self-defense forces can penetrate enemy servers and neutralize threats.
Essentially, hacking back.
Yes. Before, they had to wait to be hit. Now, they're authorizing preemptive strikes in the digital domain. They realize that the ballot box itself is a target.
But this aggressive posture isn't limited to Asia. We have to look at the Western Hemisphere. Operation Absolute Resolve.
The return of the Monroe Doctrine in force.
Let's break down that timeline. January 3rd, the United States military directly intervened in Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro was removed. He's currently in custody in New York.
And note the cynicism there. They didn't hand power to the Democratic crusader, Maria Corina Machado. They handed it to Delcy Rodriguez, the old regime's number 2. Why?
Stability.
Stability means oil flow. It's realpolitik in its rawest form.
But the resource metrics are erratic. Since the intervention, Venezuelan oil exports to the U.S. have jumped threefold to 284,000 barrels per day.
There's a bottleneck, a huge one. This is the critical failure point of the empire. You can topple a dictator with a drone strike, but you can't force the physics of the supply chain.
Explain that. Why is the oil just sitting there?
It's chemistry. Venezuelan crude is incredibly heavy and sour. It's like sludge. To refine it, you need very specific, heavy-duty refineries. The U.S. Gulf Coast has them, but...
But after years of sanctions and neglect, the logistical pipe is too narrow, the machinery is rusted or full.
The U.S. Gulf Coast refineries are choking. They cannot process the influx of heavy crude fast enough. So what happens?
The value collapses. Venezuelan oil is now trading at a massive discount, $9.50 below Brent crude.
It's a raw resource grab that is failing logistically. You can have the military force, but if the refineries can't process the sludge, you have nothing. It's the hubris of thinking you can manage a complex system by force alone.
It brings up an interesting point about the fragility of systems.
Yeah.
We assume if we capture the oil fields, we have the oil. But the system between the ground and the gas tank is broken.
Exactly. And that fragility isn't just in energy, it's in finance.
Let's pivot to that. The macro wars might feel distant for many listeners. But the economic war is in your pocket. We are witnessing a fundamental shift.
The worst shock.
President Trump has nominated Kevin Warsh as the next chair of the Federal Reserve. Now, Warsh is a known hawk. He has been critical of quantitative easing for years.
And the market reaction was instantaneous. The assumption of the Trump trade, that easy money would flow forever, that has been violently corrected. The market realized the punch bowl isn't just being taken away, it's being smashed.
The primary victim here is the crypto market. Bitcoin has crashed to the $63,000 range. It has lost nearly 50% of its value since the October peak.
$2 trillion wiped out of the crypto ecosystem since October. It was a capitulation, the liquidity is drying up. But what's even more telling is who is surviving this economic carnage. Look at the luxury sector.
The divergence is stark. You have Hermes, the maker of the Birkin bag, posting a 4.2% profit increase. Their stock is up.
Meanwhile, Kering, the owner of Gucci, is crashing. LVMH is struggling.
So what does this mean?
Understand what this means. Hermes sells to the ultra-rich, the oligarchs, the people who are immune to interest rates. Gucci sells to the aspirational middle class, the people who buy a belt with a logo on it to feel wealthy.
And that demographic is vanishing.
That demographic is dead. If you aren't Hermes, you are a casualty. The middle ground is gone. The economy is bifurcating into two species, oligarchs and peasants.
It's a K-shaped recovery on steroids.
It's not a recovery, it's a segregation of financial reality.
Which brings us to the final context, the vacuum. We have to look at the Sahel region of Africa, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso.
The so-called Alliance of Sahel States.
The West withdrew. The French left, the Americans left. The vacuum opened. Now, terror attacks in this specific region account for 19% of the global total.
And look at the response. The local governments are funding theater productions to try and de-radicalize the youth because the military solution failed. It's desperation.
Plays against AK-47s.
It is a microcosm of the entire world. When the system leaves, chaos fills the void instantly. And this is the lesson for the listener. This is why we listed these events.
We've covered the grid failure in Lviv, the assassination in Moscow, the cyber war in Tokyo, the oil glut in Texas, the crypto crash in New York.
Connect the dots. You saw the lights go out in sub-zero temperatures because a missile hit a substation. You saw your digital assets lose half their value because one man was nominated to the Fed. You saw a general shot in his home.
The macro implications are clear. The institutions are fragile.
It goes deeper than that. The era of outsourcing your survival to the government, to the bank, to the grid is over. That safety net you believe in doesn't exist.
So what does this mean for the individual listening to this?
It means that when the power goes out and when the currency fails, the only government left is you. Stop asking, what will they do? You need to ask, what will I do? Are you a victim waiting to happen, or are you a warlord of your own life?
The vacuum is here.
Interpret the silence accordingly.
Neural pulse. Clarity in a complex world. Decide your move.